Stopped it in its tracks. Okay, but now we're going. Now we're going. Stop it. See if we got some sound. We do. Okay, but now we're going. Now we're going. Stop it. See if the sound. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA, searching the world for marketing news every day. Bringing it to you every day. Maybe we'll add that in. I keep changing it up, but it's okay. Make you smile, I hope. Let's get over to the news. Okay, first we're going to start off with one of the world's best ads, right? So this was an ad that Sony did to sell color TVs, and they did it in a housing project in Glasgow. Took them 4 days to clean it up, so let's see what it's about. It's pretty funny. I think it's funny. So they're spraying paint. They're exploding paint bombs all over this project just to show you the vibrant color. Inside rooms. I don't know how they did it. It cost them $2 million to produce it. Some of them look like CG, but it isn't. It's not CG. And this project was scheduled for demolition, but they still had to clean it up a bit. This is an ad celebrating color. Again, one of the drums, top 100 ads of all time for Sony Bravia LCD televisions. You probably never saw that because it probably mostly aired in the UK. Okay, so now let's switch over to our PDF, and you might see the scroll down below, which is about, we're going to try and get this. The style consultant's really busy, so if you wonder where she's been lately, you might want to shout out and say, hey, style consultant, we need you back. John is losing his style. Anyway, but she says I can give it a go, and so we're going to be sending out an email about this. Hopefully get it together about this webinar that would be about a week and a half from now on Thursday, August 18th at 2 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Chicago time. And mark your calendar, and we'll get you more information, and we'll have a sign up on WDMA. I think we're going to charge a little bit for non-members, and if you sign up, you'll get a maybe for members too. I'm going to make available. I'm rewriting my Spinning Straw into Gold book, and I think I'm going to make available pre-publication copies. So you'll see the chapters. I'm adding about 3 or 4 new chapters and rewriting the whole thing. So I think you'll enjoy it, and it's more geared toward valuation in general. Some of the breakthrough insights that we've gotten, both through modeling and through observation, and both are important. In fact, without one, the other just can't work. So let's get over to the news. From Ray Schultz, my friend Ray Schultz, we go back a long, long way. In the basement, ad execs are near the bottom of the trust index. Why not? They lie for a living. The only ones below them, I think, are politicians. But anyway, I love this. Probably a stock photo, right? You can trust me. Trust me. So a friend said, you want to know when you're going to get fleeced? When a person puts his hand on your shoulder and says, trust me. Anyway, despite controversies about COVID-19, doctors are seen as the most trustworthy professionals by 59% of consumers. That's I think one of the highest rated ones. Scientists are second. Okay, and this 2022 IPSOS Global Trustworthiness Index, I think they do this every year. And Ray, for next year, I'd like to see the movement, if there's any. Maybe they don't even show you that, but save the data and see if world events, maybe doctors are still the highest, but maybe doctors were higher before COVID. I don't know. But I think there's two levels of that doctors thing, and which is my doctor, which is a friend of mine for years and years, and doctors in general, which are not necessarily friends. So ad execs are third from last, beating only cabinet officials and politicians. Cabinet officials are like paid advisors who are usually friends. It's a way to pay your friends for getting you elected. Okay, and who's near the bottom? Not government employees, cops, business executives, or even journalists. Nope, the bottom is held by ad execs. Ad people are trusted by 18% worldwide and 13% in the U.S. Okay, and then the rest of the article talks about pollsters, lawyers, and TV news anchors all do better, although not by much. Okay, and I think priests and clergy are about the middle, it looks like, a little higher in the U.S. Americans trust teachers almost, they're right up there with doctors. Doctors are 59, teachers are 58. And 56% trust their armed forces, which is way higher than the rest of the world. 41% outside the U.S. And it might be because the U.S., we don't permit the armed forces to be active inside the United States, right? So that may help their trust because we don't see them all the time. Sometimes in foreign countries you see a lot of troops around, and we don't see that in the U.S. almost ever. Okay, so it was ages 7 between the ages of adults under 75 and in 28 countries. So it's quite an extensive survey. So thanks for that. This was a really interesting article. Usually I put the best articles at the end, and this one might be the best. We'll see. But I liked it because it had testing in it, but it also had QR codes, which we're calling QRs. And it said that QR codes improve TV ad response rates. That's not a place you see them too much. I mean, there was a really, really famous or notorious, the #1 Super Bowl ad was just a QR going around the screen like that, and apparently it got a lot of response. So QRs are getting implemented all over the place, but in cable TV ads, they're up 319%, and this is in the UK, it seems, because Sky Mobile is a UK brand, so I'm pretty sure that's anyway. And then it had this scan me over the side, and what they offered was a particular kind of phone. They call it a handset in the UK, so also probably. But anyway, so Matt Godsmark said he's been inundated with questions from ad agencies asking how the QRs work and how they can use them. He says it gives you greater accountability on your ad response, obviously so, because it takes you right where you want people to go. And he's hearing that advertisers are saying all ads need to have some kind of tangible response mechanic. And that is, of course, one of the heart and souls of direct marketing, that generating a measurable response is one of the foundational principles of direct marketing. And as I've mentioned recently, I always laughed at that because it's like, well, what do you mean? As opposed to an unmeasurable response, but there are unmeasurable responses. There are responses that are too small to measure. And so measurable might mean more about not that we could measure but don't, but actually about the statistical validity of the response that's created. I hope that's what they meant. In my old age, I'm giving Bob Stone and Pete Hoke the benefit of the doubt. Okay, so we're still learning about the role of the QR, and he says, and And so it's an opportunity to add a response engagement. We call it a call to action or a response device into a media that we already know is highly effective. And Sky Media was doing targeted ads in household level segmentation in cable TV. But what was interesting is, and I like this, QR ads were tested against ads without QRs, and the results showed an uplift in attribution for ads with a QR, even where audiences hadn't clicked it, hadn't scanned it. And I go back to in the old days, we used to test response devices, and sometimes if they were too hidden, people didn't get that you were looking for a response, that there was an offer to be found. And so the QR in itself alerts people that there is some kind of an offer and can, I think, boost the attention level of your ad. That's what I would say to Matt. Our theory is that potentially having a well-integrated QR code makes the brand look good, makes it look like you want to hear from people, right? I couldn't quite believe it, but that's what the data shows. It says it boosts engagement with the creative. So that ugly QR actually tells people, we want to hear from you, and there's something here for you, okay? Special offer inside, we used to put on the outside of the envelopes, okay? If it's just stuck in the corner as find out more, it will be less successful. And I think what he's saying here is it needs an offer. So now is the perfect time to do low risk, low cost testing. Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Matt, for that insight. Very, 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 very interesting. Okay, now let's get back to the last part. And I mentioned, we did a Matthew Parker article on Friday, and I got all motivated. I got to go back and see what it was about. And the articles that I mark up on live here are available at wdma.org right after the show almost all the time. And there's also a podcast. If you want to send this to a friend who likes podcasts, you can go on wdma.org, and the podcast takes a little longer because I do sometimes edit out the ums and the uhs and all that. Mostly not. But anyway, so here's Matthew. This is a follow-up that we're giving Matthew in a different publication. How to use Pareto planning for sales. So you're probably familiar with the Pareto principle. I think it was a Greek guy. 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. Okay, and it's true all across the board. I remember, knowing the principle, but I remember working on a project for Amoco Oil back in the early 80s. And, Amoco kind of felt like, it was they mostly had small mom and pop gas stations in those days. And I ended up on a plane flying to a DMA show with Hal Burnett, Ed Burnett's brother. And Hal worked at National Business List. And so we got to talking, and I said, how did you do that number of employees by SIC? He said, oh, we just made it up. He said, gas stations, 8 to 10 employees. We'll give them a 9. Okay, and so when I was working with Amoco, I didn't really think that there would be, that 20% of the gas stations would generate 80% of the sales. It was tires, batteries, and accessories divisions what I was working on. And I went and visited a bunch of gas stations in the neighborhood and around Milwaukee Metro, and mostly they were smaller businesses, right? But when I got into the data, it was dramatically skewed. The top 20% were, in fact, very, very, very big buyers. And it was about, and when I looked up who they were, it was like the big truck stops on I-80, going around Chicago. And of course, that makes perfect sense, right? right where the Illinois-Indiana border is, there's huge places with probably 50 or 100 pumps, and like almost a shopping mall when you get out and walk around. So it works even with gas stations. It's worked with every business I've ever looked at. And it's one of the reasons, if you get my book, it has some diagrams and stuff that are about how you should score your customers if this is true. In other words, if you read, there aren't very many books on how to do like RFM scoring, but most will say, like Arthur Hughes talked about how to build an RFM test matrix, which is recency, frequency, monetary, and he said, you know, make every make fifths, make the most recent buyers, a fifth of the buyers, then more, and a fifth of the buyers in monetary, life-to-date monetary, and fifth. And the problem with that is that the top 20%, then that first group of the best buyers, contributes 80% of the sales. And the bottom, you know, it can only be spread so thin. So the bottom half or so, the bottom four or three or 2 or 3 fifths will contribute only 20%. 60% of the buyers will only, not even 20%, like 15. And it's even worse in frequency, because there, the bottom 3 quintiles, call them, will only contribute, most of them only bought once, about 60%. So the bottom 3 of the quintiles all have the same value. How do you split them? So what we did was, and I got this from John Worth at Woodworker Supply of New Mexico. He said that he started scoring the effect rather than the quantity of customers. So he did the frequency score with the first 20% of the orders life to date. And that might give you just 1% of the customers, might contribute 20% of the orders, probably does. And then the next 20% of the orders might be 4 or 5%. And the next might be 15. And you'll end up with the big hunk at the bottom, 50 to 60%, that all ordered once, which is appropriate. There's no way to split a one-time buyer, right? And so there's a really important principle in scoring and in creation of variables. Now, sometimes the quintiles make sense. If you've got if you've got a 10,000 group cell and you want to split it in half, then the quintiles work better. But oftentimes there isn't the effect. There isn't much. It doesn't matter much. And so you look for another variable. Anyway, so it works in nearly all areas of our lives. I think I've made that case now. I mean, it's worked in, you could say I made a whole career of scoring people's data, looking at their data in terms of the Pareto principle. So how does it work with print sales? Well, use the Pareto to focus on the right accounts. Look at the top 20 of your accounts, but also those accounts with the top 20 potential. Okay, and maybe it's just 20 or 20%. It could be either way. Depends on how many customers you have. And also focus on the right sales activities. Do you get most of your sales activity from networking, from social media, calling, email blasts? Whatever works best for you is where you should be spending most of your time. Okay? And then take it to set the right sales targets. There shouldn't be one size fits all for sales targets. Work on the best opportunities and results from a sales team to set the right targets. And make sure you understand the effects of compound Pareto activity. So focusing on the 20% of the 20%, you know, that's like the 5% of the 20%, right? Something like that. Which is about 20, you know, the 5% of your customers is about 25% of the top 20. So I'm throwing around a lot of math. You shouldn't do math live. It's very, very taxing. Okay, so it can be highly useful for setting yourself, making yourself highly focused on sales projects. And Matthew has more of that on at his website. I highly encourage you, if you're in print sales especially, but any kind of sales, reach out to Matthew. Have a great day. Like and share Your friends will know your